without further ado, I'm going to introduce Brian and the inner workings of the Bug Bazaar.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. All right, excellent. All right, so thank you for the introduction. I've got 50 minutes to fill at the end of the day, and I know that I'm between you and a bar. So I got to make this entertaining for everybody. So what we're going to be talking about today is we're talking about the bug bounty marketplace. We're going to talk about a little bit about ZDI just so you make sure you know what it is and kind of giving out some internal details that we don't normally give out. We're going to talk a little bit about the different marketplaces that exist for vulnerabilities and exploits and how we differ from those different marketplaces. And we're also going to talk a little bit about how we've impacted some government-grade operations by disclosure and working with, obviously, Microsoft and other vendors out there. So first, quickly introduce myself. My name is Brian Gorentz. So I am the Director of Vulnerability Research inside of Trend Micro. I've been leading the ZDI program now for about 6 years. So I've been able to see all sorts of different changes in the vulnerability marketplace. When I was coming in, Java sandbox escapes weren't extremely popular. I've seen basically the changes of the attack surface. I've been able to help guide some of that. I've also organized the ever-popular Pondone hacking competition, which brings in, which puts large bounties of $100,000+ on the hardest attack surfaces in the world, including the ones that are actually built here by Microsoft. And we've seen a lot of change over the years because of that. I'm also the approver of payments, so anytime a purchase happens, I'm the guy who has to actually click, yes, pay this individual. So I've done a lot of work in the past. I've been a developer. I have been everywhere from requirements, to, development, test, now on the outside, just, finding bugs, disclosing bugs to vendors. So when we say we're the largest vendor-agnostic bug bounty program, there's really no good way to visualize that because it's all digital. Nobody really can understand that. And so what we do is, this is how I show it. So every single thing up there is a CVE. We've been involved in patching every one of those CVEs since the program started 12 years ago. We're over 5,000 CVEs now since we've started the program. And that's significant if you think about it, especially from an ecosystem perspective. Every single CVE up there is a researcher out there in the world finding the bug in products that have been deployed, post-test, finding it, developing a proof of concept because we buy the proof of concept, the disclosure to the ZDI program, us reverse engineering, root causing it, us going through a financial transaction with that individual, to the disclosure process with the vendor, to the release of a patch, to the coordinated release of an advisory. That's a significant amount of work. I would love to actually run a study once of how many man hours went into this slide. This has got to be significant. And this doesn't even include all the bugs that we've been patching in 2018. This year, where we've already disclosed over 1,000 CVEs or vulnerabilities just in this year. So it's a significant amount of work. Now, why would a company like Trend Micro invest $15 million into the bug bounty marketplace? Since we started the program, $15 million. For this exact purpose, right? Our goal is intelligence. So externally, we're a we're a bug bounty program. We work with researchers around the world. They submit the bugs to us, and we develop intelligence for that. And the whole goal is to produce a patch. But internally, we're actually an intelligence program. Our goal is to understand the attack surface better than anybody else so that we can build protections and focus our tools and our products in a way that will stop the attack, right? So we're able to go when we purchase the vulnerability. At the same time, we're working with our signature teams to develop a signature, release it out. And when the public advisory comes out, the customer's been protected for almost 120 days at that point based off of the purchase that we made. And that's kind of the real business driver for the program. That's why we invested $15 million. We can understand the trends, what's happening, what the attacks look like, what the proof of concepts look like, how they manifest. And all of this stuff is extremely important for us, especially on the security side of things. Now, for those of you who've been in the economy or understand it, you can ignore the next slide, but we're going to kind of give a brief overview of what the economy actually looks like from a bug bounty perspective or from a researcher perspective. When a researcher finds a bug, and I was a vulnerability researcher prior to coming into ZDI, you had several options. You could disclose it publicly on full disclosure. Nobody likes that anymore. You could sell it into the white market, right? And so the whole purpose there is to get things fixed, right? So we call this the white market, and the white market has evolved a lot over the last several years. For a long time it was just vendor agnostic programs like ours. and iDefense and a couple other programs that exist out there. Then the vendors got involved. They started to see that it was actually valuable, that the purchasing of vulnerabilities was important. Now we have companies that run bug bounties as a service, right? So now you can actually go to a company and have them run the bug bounty for you. But the whole purpose of this whole ecosystem is to fix the bug, right? Which is great. That's what we want, right? We want to buy the bug. We want to fix the bug. For us, we're going to generate intelligence that's going to create signatures. We're typically buying just the vulnerability or the proof of concept. We do buy exploits from time to time at Pwn to Own, et cetera. But for the most part, what we're getting in our program is proof of concept code that's going to trigger a crash. If the researcher weaponizes the exploit, they have other options, right? They can sell directly to the government, where they can make significantly more money, or they can sell to a vulnerability broker if they don't want the government to know who they are, right? And when we see sanctions happen in various countries now because of exploit sales, there's a reason why people go to brokers, right? Because they don't want to be sanctioned themselves as individuals. So there's lots of options there, and you can actually make a lot of money in this space. Which is very, very interesting. The reality is, for countries that are going to spend $10 million on a single missile, why would they not want to spend $100,000 on a tool that will gather intelligence for them prior to the launch of a $10 million missile, right? So there's value in actually purchasing that stuff for the governments. Also, people, you want to take down a pedophile ring, you want to take down terrorists. There's a reason that that market exists. Now, another option is they can sell into the black market, where they're going to sell to exploit kit creators. Those exploit kit creators are going to create botnets from them. They're going to rent out those botnets, and they're going to send spam from them. They're going to do DDoS extortion, credential harvesting. And a smart criminal is going to buy a lot of those credentials. He's going to sell them to dumb criminals who are going to use those credentials to buy beer and chips. So the thing is, the dumb criminal is typically caught by the police. The spammer usually gets knocked off because everybody hates spamming, and the smart criminal is eventually going to get caught as well. But in this black side of the market, nobody else really ever gets caught. Now, from time to time now, the exploit kit creators are getting busted, but it's not very, very common for that to happen. So that's kind of the marketplace as it exists today, right? A lot of changes going on in the white market, trying to make effect on the gray market, and that's kind of where we're leading to today. So when we look at the economy, how active is that economy, right? So what we want to do is take a look at ZDI internal data to get an understanding of what's actually going on in the marketplace. And you can see since around 2013, it wasn't very active. Less than 100 bugs coming into the program in a given quarter. And now, second quarter 2018, we have almost 1,000 bugs at our disposal every single quarter. That's significant. And I get asked this question all the time. Brian, what's the impact of Microsoft releasing their bounty program? What's the impact of this new gray market vendor on our program? In reality, the tide rises all boats, right? The more people are coming into the economy now, right? There's a lot of people who are in marketplaces that can't get a job as a software developer or a job in InfoSec, so they turn to the gray market, and us in the white market are giving them the opportunity to work in a legal fashion, and that's what we like, right? So we are seeing a significant amount of bugs come into the program. Now we are seeing a lot of variety. Because we're vendor agnostic, we get to see everything, right? We don't only care about Microsoft bugs, but I love a good Microsoft bug. We only don't care about Adobe bugs. We care about all bugs, right? So what you can see here is kind of the distribution of just the first half of this year in submissions into our program. Our top vendor is Adobe. We love you, Adobe. We are receiving a lot of bugs in SCADA software. So almost 35–40% of the bugs coming into our program are in HMI solutions for SCADA manufacturers, right? And if you look at the attacks from the Ukraine from that perspective, that's where they went, right? They're going after the HMI. They're not exactly going after the PLC, some of the Stuxnet stuff as well, going after the engineering software. And that's what we're receiving bugs in. It's a significant spike over the last several years. We're also receiving Microsoft bugs, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be talking here, but also enterprise software, right? Things Cisco, a lot of the bugs that we're receiving in Cisco are in the WebEx solution, so video conferencing and things like that. That's where people are targeting. But what's new here that's different from the previous years is virtualization software, things that's used to make the cloud people are starting to audit that. There's a lot of communication that goes on between the guest operating system and the underlying hypervisor or the underlying host, and people are starting to look at that now and audit that for security vulnerabilities, and we're receiving a lot of bugs in VMware and also Oracle VirtualBox solutions. Not a lot in Hyper-V yet, but hopefully that'll come soon. So if you look at where we're buying from, all the countries in blue are countries that we've made purchases from. So it is a global market, right, out there. Now, there's one country on here that should be colored that's not colored, which is Mexico. One of our top submitters into our program actually is located in Mexico City. And he focuses on all sorts of different software. And we also have a very high submitter from Italy who focuses primarily on SCADA and enterprise software. But we're really buying stuff from all over the place. Africa's coming online. Some of our first baseband exploits that we received against phones came from Africa. India is really coming online. And as people move from the web space and looking for web vulnerabilities and they want to get into memory corruption, that's when they start coming to our program. So a lot of the researchers who are in the space now are new, focusing on web. Eventually they're going to start looking at binary. They're going to start coming to our program. Now, take a guess where we're buying all of our high-profile vulnerabilities from. Things like Microsoft, Oracle, Apple, et cetera. Where do you think we're buying those from? Anybody? Just yell it out. Oh, come on. There we go. So we are buying a lot of high-profile vulnerabilities from China and the United States and Canada, right? And that's kind of the distribution that we've had. And that makes sense because these are the countries that are actually doing active attacks using these different ODAs. Right? So it kind of matches to what we're seeing in the wild. Now, what's up with Canada? Why is there so much blue, right, in Canada? Well, one of our best submitters in the history of our program really loved highly deployed software, like Microsoft and Adobe, and so I hired him, right? So, we get an idea of which researchers are good, and then we go after them, try to hire, and then bring them into our program. So, a lot of people looking at that. Where do you think we're getting most of our SCADA vulnerabilities from? Critical infrastructure bugs. Anybody? Russia. Yeah. Almost exclusively Russia and the United States. We get a lot of security vulnerabilities in HMI solutions from Russia. Right? That's one of the reasons we go there, we present, and we talk to people in that region. And when we get them, it's not just one. It's a bulk. It's like 50 over an evening. Right? So when they're looking at them, they're kind of auditing the entire solution, and they submit the entire research set into our program, and we get to work with ICS CERT to go fix those vulnerabilities. But obviously, what? Human-machine interface, sorry. Yep. So now we get an idea of like where the program is seeing a lot of its submissions from, but we want to understand what's happening in the gray market, right? Because our goal is to fix bugs, produce patches, but we also want to have an impact on the gray market, and we want to understand how that market's working. And that's really, when you say gray and black market, it's not like they're releasing marketing material about, all the stuff that they're purchasing. They want to keep it on the DL, on the down low. They don't want people to know what they're doing. So the only way we get to understand what's going on in the gray market is when leaks happen, right? So several years ago, there was a release of a bunch of emails and data related to a group called Hacking Team. And when that happened, the security industry kind of went through all of their stuff, looking for the 0 days that they were exploiting, disclosing those to vendors. But we took a different approach, at least in my group. We want to understand the marketplace. That was what's important for us, right? Who are they buying from? Did we have an impact? Have we, made their operations harder because of the purchasing that we're doing? And you can see here, this is what they were selling their tool for, right? They sold a remote access Trojan that was used to break into enterprises. And this is just the support contracts for that tool. 90,000 euros for 12 months, 180,000 euros for 12 months of support for this tool, bought by lots of different countries out there, all listed on public documentation. But some regimes that you may not want to have access to this material, right? So it's a lucrative market. And they actually released, as part of this breach, their profit and loss spreadsheet. Right? From a business perspective, it's really interesting, right? If you look at their revenues from 2015 to 2016, you can see that they were going to have an increase in revenue for almost 30%, which is awesome for a startup in the gray hat space. The other personnel costs, they had 55 full-time employees, moving to 67 in the following year, so they were budgeting for that. But what's interesting for us is the other personnel cost, right? That's their contracting dollars, the money they were using, that we believe they were using to buy 0 days, right? So for us, that's what we're going to start looking at. And you can see that was increasing because the cost of vulnerabilities, at least from the gray market space, is increasing because we're making it harder for them. Now, how do they go about buying zero-day compared to the way that we buy zero-day? So one thing that they could use is consultancy services. Now, that's what we do in ZDI. Every researcher who submits to our program is a consultant for us. We go and we pay them as consultants. And the way it works is, in our program, you submit the vulnerability, you get paid immediately, right? So it's valuable for the researcher. Now, this is a invoice from an individual named Vitaly Torpov, who was working with Hacking Team back when this leak happened, and they're paying him 40,000 euros for work, or USD, I can't remember. And at the time, Vitaly wasn't really known by the research community very well. He was a pretty private person, but we knew him in ZDI for several years before that. He'd been submitting to our program for a very long time. Very high quality researcher. We basically purchased 95% of the cases that came in. Focused mostly on .NET Framework vulnerabilities and Java, and moving into Flash later on. And he kind of disappeared from our program, and we kind of wondered where he went. And he ended up going over into the gray market and start making money over there. So the consultant, but what's interesting about him is he exploits software differently than everybody else, right? There's publicly known documentation, there's publicly known techniques for exploitation, and there's not publicly known, right? Undocumented features and stuff like that. And that's what he would leverage, right? So us purchasing these details, disclosing them to the vendor, would actually allow people to defend against those types of techniques that weren't publicly known. For example, he had a way of bypassing Java sandbox, or producing Java sandbox escapes, which was not publicly known at the time, which we talked about back in BlueHat several years ago. Now, another option for buying vulnerabilities is to work through the broker like we talked about. And there was some details about brokers that were released as part of this leak. So Hacking Team was working with several brokers, but the one that was leaked was from VBI, Vulnerability Brokerage International. And you can see here, this is how they would advertise their ARMs, right? You say Adobe Flash client-side remote code execution vulnerability. And what's interesting about this is the way that they sold it, right? They sold it either exclusively, non-exclusive, or monthly license. Monthly license used for pen test organizations who want to use ODay. Non-exclusive purchase means that they can sell it to multiple people. And obviously the most important one that we're interested in is exclusive purchase, where you're going to buy it, nobody else is going to get it, you're going to use it once, and you're going to throw it away. Right? So for highly sensitive operations, you're going to buy the most expensive thing you can and make sure that nobody else has access to it. So that model is different from the white market. In the white market, we in ZDI purchase the vulnerability when we receive it before we disclose it to the vendor. Right? So we pay immediately. The vendor's bounty programs, they will actually pay when the patch is released. Right? So that's a 5-month gap sometimes for the researcher to get paid. So it's more lucrative, it's better for them to get that money up front faster. And in the gray market, they pay a little bit differently, right? So you can see here from this, which is the pricing for one of those types of vulnerabilities, $95,000 for an exclusive purchase for an Adobe Flash vulnerability. But their payment schedule is very different than ours, right? They're paying to maintain the zero-day status of the vulnerability. So they're going to pay 50% after 30 days. They're going to pay 25% after 60 days and 25% more after 90 days, making sure that you don't sell them the vulnerability and then immediately sell it to ZDI, right? So they're maintaining their zero-day status, which is an interesting pay schedule. It almost, the way that the vendors work, you pay after patch. So, they're having to wait even longer than the gray market is waiting, right? So that's challenging when it comes to a researcher. Now, what was also released was their exploit inventory. So for us in ZDI, obviously we want to patch bugs. We want to patch a lot of bugs. We want to work with people in this room to fix the vulnerabilities. But we also want to have an impact on the actual inventory that's available for purchase out there in the gray market. And what we do is we took this list and compared it against what we had been purchasing for that year. And what you see here in red is the different products that we actually purchased vulnerabilities in. So we purchased vulnerabilities in McAfee ePolicy Orchestrator. Obviously, Android's a good target for us, PHP, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're buying vulnerabilities in the right targets, right? We are buying in the things that are being sold in the gray market. Not in everything. Kingsoft, Office, not interested. Asus device driver, not interested. We're interested in the big stuff, right? Kernel privilege escalation is definitely interested in that. So we think we're having an impact. We're at least buying in the right places, right? That's good for us. That when I go to my management team and say, hey, I need an extra $1 million to buy a bug, they're going to ask why, right? So we can actually point to the gray market now and say we have evidence that we're actually making an impact in certain places, which is good. Now, with every market, there's things that happen in the market that change the way things work or the way prices work, and so we want to look at those to understand why that happens and why different things result in different changes. So what we want to do is then take a look at the submission rates into the ZDI program when various bugs are hot, and we can understand why changes occur. So you can see here, for example, is the Oracle Java 0-day submission rate into our program over the last several years. You can see we receive anywhere from 1 to 10 Java 0 days every quarter. And then all of a sudden, we see a huge spike, right? Back in, fourth quarter, first quarter 2013, a significant spike in traffic into the program. We had a guy basically staff full-time just looking at Java Sandbox escapes. But what was happening at that time? Java Sandbox escapes were the attack vector of choice for exploit kits. And admittedly, we were a little bit late understanding that because we started getting the submissions late, right? And then all of a sudden, there was a significant dip in the program. So what was happening at this time? The browser manufacturers, like the people in this room and the person who presented before us, got sick and tired of Java exploitation happening, so they introduced click-to-play. And when that mitigation was forced upon Java by everybody but Oracle, it had a significant impact on the ecosystem. We just basically stopped receiving bugs, right? Because no longer was it something interesting to look at because it wasn't going to have an impact anymore. So at that point, we have a corrective period in submissions, and we move back to our normal rates of 1 to 10 Java 0 days per quarter. Right? So that's interesting, but does that play out again, right? That's the first time we've ever kind of seen that, or at least since I was running the program. So I found it really interesting. So what do we see here? This is the submission rate in 0 day in Internet Explorer coming through our program back for the last 5 years. And you can see, we started to see a spike. Looks to be, fourth quarter, first quarter 2013. And use after free vulnerabilities in Microsoft's browser. And then we see a huge spike in basically the first quarter, second quarter of 2014. And this time we actually beat them to the punch. We understood that there was going to be active exploitation happening in UAS because of the amount of submissions that we were receiving. And I'll be honest, we had multiple people working use after free vulnerabilities in Microsoft Edge in my program during those times every single day. As you can tell by the numbers, we were receiving a brand new bug. Every single time it was exploitable. Every single time we were paying multiple figures to researchers to quick turn those and to try to get them into Microsoft as fast as possible. And there was kind of an epidemic of, going on, right? Use after frees were really, really prevalent. And so, we were wondering, well, is that going to change, right? What's going to happen? Are they going to move on? They're going to do something else? And then all of a sudden, you can see we had a significant drop in submissions kind of in the second quarter of 2014. Now, people in this room probably know why that was, but the reality is there was a new mitigation released by Microsoft, you guys, to kind of fight the use after free problem. Isolated heap, memgc, mem protection, several different iterations of this technique that went through and were released. And it had a significant impact on our program when they were released. I wouldn't admit it at the time, but it was significant. We had a lot of use after frees coming into our program, and when that mitigation was released, it killed almost all of them. It was awesome, right, for us. Saved me a lot of money, but it was also great for the ecosystem because they were actively being used in watering hole attacks and exploit kits. And at the time, you all didn't really tell us that it was going on. Rightfully so, because you wouldn't want people to research it. But it did make a big impact and saved us a lot of money and saved the ecosystem a lot of pain when those were released because it made exploitation significantly harder in that browser. And so you can see now, we don't get a lot of Internet Explorer ODE. Over the last several years, people have kind of moved on. Part of that is because they're moving to Edge, right? They're starting to look at Edge now as a source of browser vulnerabilities. But the other interesting thing is we're starting to see another spike, right, in browser submissions, right? So usually it means there's something going on, right? People are starting to find bugs or starting to find a weakness that they're going to be taking advantage of. And lo and behold, we see that spike, and bam, CVE 2018-8174 comes out. And this was found, I think, by 360 being exploited in the wild, used after free and VB script engine. And then the following month, last month, my own company, Trend Micro, found CVE 2018-8373 being exploited in the wild, kind of tying back to what we're seeing in our program, right? We see a spike in submissions, and then all of a sudden you're going to start seeing active exploitation of those bugs because the ecosystem talks, right? They understand what's going on. They see the weaknesses come out. They're tracking the advisories. I can tell you we have several people on the internet who could just constantly scan our site looking for new advisories and new details coming out, right? So they know what's going on. So that's interesting. It kind of maps back to our trending data. Now, so we've seen when browser manufacturers take advantage of click-to-play, you saw when new mitigations came out and the reaction that it had in the ecosystem. So what happens when we do an end-of-life announcement, right? So what you see here is submissions in Adobe Flash, right? Adobe Flash coming into our program, again, anywhere from 0 to 10 Adobe Flash vulnerabilities for several years. And then all of a sudden, a huge spike again in traffic. Something's wrong, right? We know something's going to be actively exploited soon. And that's what ended up happening, right? They shifted from the exploitation of Internet Explorer use after freeze to vulnerabilities in Adobe Flash, right? And then Adobe decided, well, we're going to end of life this product, and that really changed the way the game worked. The day that announcement came out, we basically stopped receiving submissions in our program for Adobe Flash, right? Because they knew the prices were going to change. People, we had a little conversation before my presentation. We thought you would think people would want to dump their bugs at that point, try to get them in as fast as possible. That didn't happen in this case, right? We basically just stopped kind of receiving submissions and people started looking elsewhere. Then, first quarter 2018, so we see that correction there. And then the first quarter of 2018, we start seeing a spike again. We know something's up. And what do we see? CVE 2018-5002. Being exploited in the wild through the use of Office documents. So what they did is instead of using the browsers, they've moved over to Office, and then all of a sudden it becomes interesting again, right? And I think there's some mitigations coming out related to that soon, which is great because we know that that's an active vector that they're actively using right now, something that we want to tackle as a program and as a community. Now what's going on? What's another attack surface that doesn't receive a lot of attention, but from at least the press, but is receiving a lot of attention from the research community right now? So the submission rate that you see here is the submission of PDF reader vulnerabilities, not just Adobe, but Foxit, Microsoft, all the PDF readers. Submissions coming into our program right now, right? It's significant, right? I have multiple people on my team full-time looking at PDF parsing vulnerabilities, PDF JavaScript vulnerabilities, just because the rate is so big, right? And there's been no correction at this point, right? There's been no click-to-play. There's been no mitigations released that have stopped the bugs. There's been no end-of-life announcement for the PDF readers, which I don't think is coming. But there's been no check by the vendor or the community to stop the submission rate coming in. And obviously, when we see submissions like this, we get concerned because we think that they're going to actively be used in the wild. And sure enough, a couple months ago, there was a couple that were actually being leveraged in the wild. One found by Microsoft that was prior to actual release, but was under active development. So people are starting to use this as a vector in attacks. We expect to see more of that because there is no check right now. There's just a significant amount of bugs coming into the program related to PDF rendering. And it's a trend that we hopefully will see submissions drop soon. But we can use this to kind of predict what's going to happen next. We can price better, right? We have to adjust our prices. It's a very competitive marketplace. There's a lot of people out there, fighting us for the bugs. But if we look at this, we can understand just laying it kind of all on top of each other what's happening. We're seeing, I know the vendors are receiving a lot of submissions right now. We're receiving a lot of submissions through our program. and you can see it kind of tracked to what's going on in the greater ecosystem. First, the exploitation of Java. Then there was the correction due to the click-to-play. They moved on to Adobe Flash, Internet Explorer at this point was the attack vector of choice. Then Microsoft corrected that. Fantastic. They decided to move over to Flash at this point as the way to go, mass exploitation with Flash. End of life. Moving, and then finding different vectors, right? Going through Office, using browsers again, going back to browsers, using PDFs to get code execution. All of these different things that they can leverage, and it kind of maps to what we're seeing. Like, what's the next thing for massive exploitation, right? Browsers again, PDF readers, Office, I don't know, we'll see. Now, this marketplace is also starting to be regulated, right? It was one of the last free marketplaces that you could work in without any regulations. And the government decided that, well, they didn't like that anymore, so they started regulating the marketplace. And several years ago, the Wassenaar arrangement was released, which is a dual-use regulation that is agreed to by lots of different countries. And they included intrusion software in the Wassenaar arrangement, right? So at this point, buying things at Pwn2Own becomes more complicated because we need to adjust to the rules. We need to make sure that we've got the right exports in place, we have the right import agreements in place, that the researchers are covered, at least from a legal perspective, when they're transferring around this information, because it's actually regulated now, at least from the Wassenaar countries. But we really haven't, I'll be honest, we haven't seen it impact us in the white space very much, right? We've gone through the export controls for contestants. They've never actually stopped us from transferring the exploit to Pwn2Own. It's just they have to go through a couple extra steps to actually move the exploit to the contest where we can actually demonstrate it and purchase it. So the Wassenaar arrangement hasn't had as big of an impact. What's had a bigger impact for us is the new regulations in China, which has kind of stopped the participation of Chinese researchers in contests related to exploitation and the disclosure of those vulnerabilities. I mean, it's not lost on me that 1 year we have a bunch of participation in China, regulations come out, and then we have no participation in China. You can't. There's only one way to explain that. So that's where I would think that we have the most impact from, at least from the Chinese regulations related to our contest here, right? And I would argue that Pwn2Own is a big public display of exploitation and what's possible when exploiting browsers and different attack surfaces like virtualization, mobile, IoT now. And it's actually, I think, had a lot of positive impact on the industry, right? It gets people who don't want to, work for a vendor, the press and the prestige of winning a contest. It brings in exploit techniques that you can actually harden against, which I think is very good, and not being found actually in the wild, right, which is the best part, right? They're not actually going to be found in the wild. You're going to get them beforehand. You're going to be able to fix them and harden them. Some people will disagree with me. That's okay. But, we've been running this contest now for over 10 years. We've seen the attack surface harden from lots of different vendors. And it's something that we're actually really proud of, to be part of that community, right? To be able to help out providing intelligence to the vendors. And we hope that the regulations don't affect it too much, right? But now, like in Pwn2Own, it's been running for 10 years. There's always ebbs and flows in the contest, right? The contest, will be dominated by one group for several years. They'll get sold off, or some of the exploiters will leave and go to different vendors. Then we'll have a lull. Then, another group will come in and dominate for several years. The Chinese came in and dominated for several years, and now they're moving on. And what we have now is kind of the new class of researchers coming in, right? People participating in CTFs, right? Winning DEF CON CTF and all of these different capture the flag competitions are participating in our contest now and winning money and being able to maintain kind of that independent status that a lot of people like to have, right? Not everybody wants to work for a vendor. Not everybody wants to work with a vendor. So we give them that opportunity to do that as long as we're allowed to disclose that information to the vendor. Now, we're also taking different approaches as well. We're not only doing contests anymore. We actually have what we call our targeted incentive program, which actually put big bounties on attack surfaces that we find valuable and our customers find valuable, right? So the first iteration of this was kind of web services, web servers, server-side software, where we're putting up significant bounties. We're talking $200,000 for a remote code execution exploit against Microsoft IIS, which would be pretty stellar to get. But that's a hard attack surface, right? Those just hang out there, right? Those are significantly difficult to go after. So we put a lot of money up there. That's kind of our play into the gray market, trying to convince people to come over and participate in the white market with money and prestige. Now, we know that we fix a lot of bugs. We know that we think we have an impact on the gray market, but do we actually have an impact on the gray market? Can we say that we've actually stopped government-grade exploits? Well, the reality is we're living in a shadow broker's world, right? Now, governments, when they get compromised and their exploit tools get released, it's a lot of damage that happens, right? And so, but when that happens, we can actually look at that data and understand if we have an impact. Let's go look at the details. Are any of the bugs that we fixed stopping the exploits from happening? And in this case, when the equation group released the shadow broker's details, that exploit kit had a lot of different exploits in it, Eternal Blue being the most famous now because of WannaCry. But there were several others in there, including one called Ewok Frenzy. Ewok Frenzy leveraged CVE 2007-1675, which was a CVSS 10 in Lotus Domino. It was a bug that we actually patched back in 2007, purchased in 2006, I believe, patched in 2007. Microsoft said it was a denial of service. We said it was a remote code execution. Supposedly the NSA also said it was remote code execution because it was in their list. But if you think about the exploit kits, or the chains that were in that exploit kit, this bug is from 2007. So how long did those exploits actually live, or how long were they actually around? For use by the government, right? And this is where I think kind of the industry gets it a little bit wrong, because a lot of the research groups inside of security companies want to go after what's going to give them the most press, right? So IoT, these different things that are going to generate articles and talk about how great they are. The reality is what we really need to be focusing on is the stuff that's going to be leveraged by the government, right? SMB, IIS, the stuff that's going to have massive impact on the ecosystem, right? And that's where we get it wrong. Like we put a lot of people put bounties on that IoT stuff to get some praise, but the reality is we need to be tackling those attack surfaces, giving you the details you need to harden those attack surfaces and stop these types of exploits from happening, right? And I know after the release of the Eternal Blue, I know that there was a lot of work internally done on SMB, and I think that's going to help, kind of increase the resiliency of that attack surface. Now, another bug that we always found kind of interesting that came through our program was a bug that was, we call it shades of Stuxnet or Stuxnet 2 or whatever. But in the Stuxnet attack, you plugged in the USB, you viewed the folder, executed code, installed the malware. Right? That was like the most famous bug that existed at the time. And when it was patched, everybody looked at it. Right? That was like the most famous bug. Everybody's looking at the patch. Everybody's looking at how it worked. And then it went dormant for several years. Everybody thought that it didn't actually exist anymore, that vector, right? Well, we received a submission into our program back in 2015 and submitted it, and it was basically claimed to be a bypass of that patch, right? The patch for the famous USB exploit that was used in Stuxnet, reported by this individual, Michael Heerklotz. Supposedly found it after reading Countdown to Zero Day, which is hard to believe because I've read the book. But this is what it looked like, right? You basically browse the USB, pops calculator, great exploit. But we couldn't believe it. Like when we got the bug, the guy on my team who was there, he was like so excited to pull down the report, look at it, look at the exploit, diagnose it, to figure out if it was actually true. Is it possible to bypass the Stuxnet patch? And it was, right? And we purchased that vulnerability. It was 5 figures for us. We purchased that vulnerability and submitted it to Microsoft. And at the time, we were working for HP. We didn't really have endpoint. So we said, you should turn on some, we asked them to turn on some silent signatures. I don't know if they did or not. Or I don't know if you did. But we never heard anything back, right? And the bug got fixed, the CVE 2015-0096, and it kind of went away for us, right? We didn't think it actually had any impact, but it was a really cool bug, right? How is it possible that a student found the bypass for the most famous bug that existed at the time? I don't know. And then we had Vault 7, right, which was the release of a set of exploit tools from the CIA, supposedly from the CIA for closed network infiltration. And we got to look at Easy Cheese, which was one of the exploits that they had for closed network infiltration. And it turns out that they were actually leveraging CVE 2015-0096 in that tool set. And when we killed that bug in 2015, they had to move on to something else and resulted in the development of brutal kangaroo. So there is actual impact. We can demonstrate now that we have impact in stopping government-grade attacks. We have several more examples of this. But this is actually a filter that we deployed and got hits on in the wild in Europe, South America, and Singapore. So very interesting bug because you could exploit it also from a network. Now, we're not only caring about U.S. government exploitation, we care about other governments' exploitation as well. And we also, because we buy so many HMI, human-machine interface bugs, we want to make sure we have an impact over there. So if you look at Black Energy, which is supposedly what was used to break into the Ukrainian power plant, it was leveraging HMI vulnerabilities to get code execution, and one of those bugs, and possibly several of those bugs, were purchased by us and disclosed through our program and fixed, stopping the possible exploitation by Black Energy, right? Especially in the GE software Simplicity and also Advantex Web Access, which has hundreds and hundreds of bugs in it. Now, finally, also, the use of, so now we are impacting the SCADA infrastructure as well. And most recently, we talked about CVE 2018-8174, which is a vulnerability in VB script. We were receiving, this was the publicly released bug from 360 on what that looked like, triggering use after free. But we had also seen that spike in ZDI, and we're receiving very similar bugs into our program prior to the release of that one being actively used in the wild. So we got an understanding of this being a possible issue. We had researched and discovered several of our own that we had disclosed into Microsoft. And so it kind of mapped to our trending data that the VB script stuff was going to be used in the wild. We should release signatures that are going to stop that. Lo and behold, a month after that, again, a very similar bug in VB script used by the same supposed threat actor used in the wild, found by us in Trend Micro, matches our trending data, right? It matches our pre-disclosure guidance that we would provide to our filter teams. So we were able to detect that and stop that attack based off of what we're purchasing, which is great, right? That's the whole point. Now, disclosure and vendor response, that's another part of the marketplace, right? How often are you releasing patches? And we do a lot of vulnerability patching. You can see here just kind of what we're experiencing. I can tell you in 2018, we were already over the 1,009 bugs, right? We're probably going to be around 1,200. But the interesting thing is we actually have a timeline. When the vendor gets to the 120-day point, we release an advisory, if it's fixed or not. We release details to provide the ability for the ecosystem to actually protect itself at this point. And you can see that about 10% of the bugs coming through our program are actually released in this zero-day fashion, which is a little sad, right? Like 10% of the submissions aren't actively being worked in a timely fashion. We're talking 120 days is a significant amount of time, longer than the industry standard of 90 days. So it is a part of the ecosystem that some of those bugs are going to exist for a very long time, and even when the patch is out, it still can be exploited if you haven't patched it. But is it getting better? Yes. At least from an external perspective, we can tell you that it is, because we've been tracking vulnerability exposure, how long, once we submit it and we get the patch. This is what it looks like for the last several years. We're right around 120 days right now, but it is decreasing, which is great. Possibly because of the pressure that's being put on vendors. This is all of our vendors, not just Microsoft. But what we like to do is actually look at the verticals as well, right? Which industries are doing better and worse than the others? So you can see highly deployed software, Microsoft, Apple, it's about 120 days-ish. Business software, 200 days. Back when we pulled this, like our timelines have changed, but almost 200 days, right, to fix a bug, which is terrible because the reality is highly deployed software at least has sandboxes and new mitigations and things like that. Business software, it's all written in Java, command injection, and they always run a system, so it's a complete enterprise compromise at that point with enterprise software. And there's no consistent patching schedule. There's no automated patch release, so it's a really bad situation to be in. Right? Obviously, we monitor ourselves, the security industry. We're not doing as good as Microsoft is, and SCADA as well, also not being very good. But the issue with SCADA is there's really two windows at that point. Same with mobile. There's the time when the bug is found, the time when it's released, and then the time when the patch is deployed and the patch is actually implemented. So you can imagine that in the skate industry, that exposure window is possibly double the size of the traditional vulnerability exposure window, which is really bad because the reality is researchers are releasing the proof of concepts almost immediately on patch, and so it doesn't give the vendors a lot of time, the people who are implementing the patches, to actually deploy the patches before they can be leveraged and compromised. That's why we release protections for those when we do. So in conclusion, blockchain solves everything. No. In this space, blockchain solves nothing, right? So bounty programs have an impact on everybody, right? Not just our space or what's being found, what's being discovered, but the patches that are released, right? When you go to a conference and you can tell people that you helped out with Patch Tuesday, and the reason that you're patching, or a good chunk of those bugs came from our program. We spent millions of dollars on them, but it also guides research, right? You can see the trending data from the program. You understand that researchers are going to go after what they see as weak. They're going to target it. They're going to try to fix the bugs in those programs. If they're submitting to our program, they want to get the bug fixed. We are a white hat player. The export marketplace is very crowded, right? And it's always evolving, always shifting. Vendors releasing new programs. They're taking different angles, trying to get their researchers in there. Do we put their names on a list, top 100? Do we give them more money? Do we make them more visible? All of that plays into it, right? Everything is valuable for the researcher. But on the gray market side, there's new players coming in and out all the time. Vupin, now Zerodium. People changing their different their business models to adapt to an ever-changing market. We can use the data that we're receiving in our program, and I'm sure you guys do the same in your security act, to predict what's going to happen next, where we need to invest, at least from a security technology perspective, to stop the zero-day attack from happening. Because the reality is zero-day exploits are rare, but zero-day vulnerabilities are not, right? We see thousands every quarter, 1,000 every quarter. What's actually going to be leveraged is a different story, and we can use that trending data to actually predict what's going to happen. But it's not the only thing. Right? Bounties aren't going to be the only way to solve this problem. We need the developers out there implementing secure SDLC. The best thing is to not ship the bug at all, right? And if I'm out of a job, that's fantastic, right? I'll go, I'll start becoming a developer again. So the reality is it's cheaper not to ship the bug, right? The actions that you take do have a direct impact on the marketplace. The mitigations you release, the changes that you make, and hopefully I showed you that here. It has an impact not only in what's being discovered, what is actually being used in the wild, and what people can use in the wild, right? And that's what we want to get to, is to remove as many bugs as possible through bounty programs and secure software development. And with that, if you're interested in what we do, we have a blog, we do Twitter, secure communication. You can reach out to us. I know a lot of people here, so we can just connect over beers after this. And with that, any questions?
Alrighty. I get to be a mic runner and your friendly neighborhood MC. So I'm going to take a question over here, and then we'll take one from that side. I'm not sure if that's on, so test it.
Hey, hello? Can you hear me?
Nope. Try pushing the button again.
Nope.
This might be out of battery too.
Oh.
You can probably hear me from there, right?
Hang on, though, because the other people in the audience can't hear you.
Hi. Thank you for the awesome presentation.
Thank you.
Quick question on the example of, I think it was Vitaly that you mentioned. So when you see researchers move from reporting bugs to you to the gray market, is it just that they're after more money, or are there other factors involved that you can discuss?
Yeah, you never know what's going on in their lives, right? You never know the pressure that they're under. We choose to believe that people want to fix bugs in the end. Why that one researcher went over into the gray market, I have no idea, to be honest. But the reality is like at least we know he exists and the types of exploits that he's going to write and what he's going to use, and that's why for us that's why we purchase them, right? The intelligence is good for us. We're going to disclose all of that to the vendor. It's good for you, and we can build better protections because of it. Somebody in the back.
Hey, I was curious about that last slide where you mentioned that it's better to not ship the bug, but one of the tenets of modern security is like rely on mitigations a lot more. Have you seen data around, like, let's assume we can't stop people from writing bugs?
Yep.
Are exploit mitigations helping, or like do you have I mean, maybe not formal data, but just what are your thoughts around how much impact exploit mitigations have had?
Yeah, I think the development of mitigations is kind of where everybody's going, right? So the reality is like, especially if you look at Internet Explorer, right? They released the mitigations for memory protection, MGC, and things like that because there was so many bugs that they and it's a very complicated attack surface. It's really hard to test, right, for that type of stuff. So and you're just not going to catch them all. So I mean, I think it's valuable that those mitigations exist. It's going to make it more expensive to exploit bugs, and the more work we do there, the better. And like that's why we like to partner and do mitigation research as well. Like we've actually participated in Microsoft's bounty program back when those mitigations were released, and hopefully that helped make things better internally. I don't know if it did or not, but we did get paid and donated that money to charity. So.
How do you see the platform bounty programs impacting the ZDI program and kind of going forward? Will that change at all?
So for us, it's more bringing more people into the marketplace, right? So the reality is like the platform bounty programs are what I call bounties as a service companies. They're bringing people into the market, especially when they're looking at web vulnerabilities, right? So when they stop looking at web vulnerabilities and start going into binary vulnerabilities or server-side or client-side vulnerabilities, we've been around for 12 years. People know what we do. So they actually come over to our program and start participating in there because there's not a lot of bounties on the other side for those types of things. So it gives us, as they grow, we get more submissions, and our submission rates show that, that we're starting to receive a lot more submissions because of some of these other companies that have come online. Yeah, right here.
Did you have your hand up? I did, yeah. Okay, I'll come back to you.
So I guess this is piggybacking off the last question a little bit,
Sure.
but your graph had the stark difference between the business applications and like the rapid development ones. Is the lack of security muscle in a lot of other places, like the company I came from before I came to Microsoft, where we had me and one other person and didn't have the bandwidth to fix those kind of bugs? Are you guys doing any sort of outreach programs to help some of these folks who aren't necessarily thinking about security all up?
Yep. Yeah, so actually we just released a press release recently where we're offering our services to IoT vendors for free, right? Where we will come in and we'll help you understand how to do security at. We'll help you understand how to patch correctly and how to integrate and talk to the ecosystem that, where researchers are doing research. So we're offering that for free for people who are actually interested in partnering with us. So yes, we do.
When you see us, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. I don't know if the mic's on. All right. When you see a spike in a certain area, do you get collisions where two independent researchers find the same thing? Do you pay only one of them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we do see a lot of collisions. Actually, that happens a lot more now than it did in the past. Obviously, there's a lot more people in the industry, and what ends up happening is one researcher will release kind of something innovative, and everybody will take that and use it, and as a result, a lot of collisions occur. Yep. Right. So the way it works in our program is the first person to submit the bug gets the money. Right. Yep. So
do you ever see any of those where the second person to find the same bug go off into the gray market?
I don't have any evidence of that. It's possible, but the reality at that point, it's already at the vendor and it's likely to be fixed. But vulnerability collisions are very common, and I think we're going to start doing. We're looking at releasing some internal details about the collision rates that we're seeing in our program, because we work with every vendor. We can get an understanding of what's actually going across the greater ecosystem just based off of what we're seeing and the types of collisions that happen. But it's very common.
Okay, if there are not any other questions, was there one more?
Yell it out.
You got to wave it. You wave your arm or else I won't see you. Okay.
Am I audible?
There you go.
So for the people who are researching in this space, is everybody involved in it inherently kind of in like a legal gray area, or is there some way to participate legally and as just a normal person who has a job and lives?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing illegal against vulnerability research. So, I mean, the reality is you're looking at the code, and if you are going to sell the exploit in certain areas, like you have to abide by the Wassenaar arrangement and things like that, right? So, but the reality is, like in our marketplace, we're just buying proof of concepts. So and we're understanding what the actual vulnerability is. So that is, I mean, it's a little gray area, but not really. I mean, it's kind of understood to be okay.
All
so
right.
I do talk to a lot of legal teams when we do disclosures. So.
Well, and I know historically less sophisticated companies have come out with legal threats to researchers. It was more common back in like early 2000s, but it still happens.
That still happens. We got legal threats last week. So
yeah, still happens.
It's part of
All
it.
right. I don't see any other hands, and it is happy hour. So thank you so much, Brian. This was a great presentation. And thank you all for coming, and we'll see you tomorrow at day 2 of BlueHat.